Montana's like, are we going to talk about how, like, you didn't tell me you had OCD? It just showed up one day in our marriage. And I was like, you knew I had OCD. He's like, yeah, I know. But then all of a sudden, everything lit on fire. And I'm like,
when I asked your parents for your hand in marriage, they gave me a warning. They were like, hey, you know, like she struggles a little bit with OCD. And I was just like, yeah, it's okay. I got it. Like, I understand it. And then I did not.
I thought I had my OCD under control my entire life. And I think I had just gotten so comfortable in the chaos. And then once you're living with someone all the time, I think it all just kind of comes out. He went on his first deployment, or second deployment. I had found out I was pregnant 3 days later after he left. And basically all hell broke loose. For me, I realized that the only thing scarier than my OCD was the world I had created and that we were living in.
Have you ever felt so overwhelmed by your mental health concerns that it's hard to even contemplate getting help? Let's be honest. When you're really struggling, finding help and getting yourself to a therapy session can be really difficult. But that's where virtual therapy offerings like ours really make a difference. As a licensed clinical psychologist with 25 years of OCD treatment, I've worked with people to help them get their life back on track. I've also trained a clinical team to do the same here at NOCD. NOCD is an online platform offering specialized, accessible, and convenient OCD treatment. Our therapists take insurance and will work with you every step of the way to help you get your life back from obsessive-compulsive disorder. So head to NOCD.com to book a call to start your treatment journey. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on our latest podcasts and webinars. Now, on to today's episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of the Get to Know OCD podcast. My name is Dr. Patrick McGrath, and I'm the Chief Clinical Officer for NOCD. Today, I have a guest that you might recognize. Mackenzie and I do a Wednesday night webinar once in a while together. So hi, Mackenzie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
And you have a sidekick today, it appears. I'm wondering if we could have an introduction, who this is.
Hello, everyone. My name's Montana, and I am Mackenzie's husband.
Awesome.
Lucky him.
Yeah.
Well, amen to that. Yes, very good. So, Mackenzie, we talk sometimes on our Wednesday webinar about, of course, OCD, but having a family and having OCD, being a spouse and having OCD. And we've chatted a little bit offline about, would it be interesting to kind of bring in the couple perspective into this whole experience, which we've never done before. So this is exciting. You're the first ones to go into this foray, shall we say, of the couple experience. So thank you both for doing that. And Mackenzie, thank you for, opening up about something that I don't know that we talk very much about, which is what is the perspective of a spouse of someone with OCD in navigating the entire OCD experience?
Yeah, of course. We're happy to.
Awesome. Well, why don't I give the two of you a little bit of time just to introduce yourselves. Tell us how you met each other and maybe how OCD might have joined the relationship into this throuple that you find yourselves in with the two of you and OCD.
So my name is Mackenzie. I am a support group host for NOCD. I'm also diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder. I was diagnosed the summer after 8th grade, but I have struggled with it my entire life. This is Montana.
Yep.
He's along for the ride. We were actually best friends in high school. Maybe best friends is pushing it. We were friends in high school. And I went to college. He joined the Marine Corps, and we met back up later in life. And we were laughing to each other a second ago because Montana's like, are we going to talk about how, like, you didn't tell me you had OCD? It just showed up one day in our marriage. And I was like, you knew I had OCD. He's like, yeah, I know. But then all of a sudden, everything lit on fire. And I'm like, well, So I think I don't know. I mean, it was something you knew. We had talked about it as a family, and
I mean, I had ideas, but I remember when I asked your parents for your hand in marriage, they gave me a warning. They were like, hey, like she struggles a little bit with OCD. And I was just like, yeah, it's okay. I got it. Like, I understand it. And then I did not. But
Those famous last
wow.
words. Yeah, I get it. Sure, yeah, no problem.
It's like, oh shit.
Yeah, where did this come from? Well, Montana, what did you understand at that point, and then what did you come to realize you didn't understand once you were married?
To be honest, I did not know anything about OCD.
So you totally lied to her parents in order to get
Right,
married to
yeah.
her. Okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure.
You thought you knew.
Yeah.
I thought I knew, but I didn't really understand it. I didn't know how serious it was. I thought it was kind of like the hand washing and needing hand sanitizer and certain things having to be like, in her way. I just kind of thought that was how she just kind of lived life, I didn't understand the severity of it until we would, let's say, I'm trying to think of an example that was a big one.
Well, I think when we moved in together, it all kind of.
Yeah, when we moved in, it was out there because we didn't, we started together. We had to buy, basic stuff like silverware and plates, and it was washing dishes would be the first one. She was big on that you have to wash them and then put them in the dishwasher, and I couldn't understand that.
I've never understood that either,
That's what the dishwasher does. Yeah.
OCD or not, I've never understood that one. So yeah, okay.
But once I gave pushback to those things, and then I would see how it affected her, that's when I realized, like, okay, this is deeper than just saying, you have OCD or, having to do things this way. So I started understanding it through real life.
I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, that he saw, I think for me, like I always say, like I thought I had my OCD under control my entire life. And I think I had just gotten so comfortable in the chaos. And then once you're living with someone all the time, and my contamination OCD was very prominent.
Right.
And I think it all just kind of comes out in the wash. But I think it got worse. He went on his first deployment, or second deployment. I had found out I was pregnant 3 days later after he left. And basically all hell broke loose with my OCD.
Pregnancy's never been an issue with OCD. I don't know why that ever happened, Mackenzie. Never. Yeah, no, I've never. Oh, wait, maybe a little. Okay, maybe we have a whole subtype about that, actually. Yeah. Okay. So
yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now you're away from each other, and your OCD's flaring up. So, Montana, I'm betting there were a lot of frantic calls in that experience, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to say fortunate for me, but I had no access to communication.
Okay.
So
all right.
I would randomly get a phone call, periodically. I would say if we averaged it maybe once a month, and it had a severe delay. So by the time she would say, "Are you there?" I'd already hung up. So it was mainly
you got frantic Facebook messages.
Mainly it was Facebook messaging and emails, and then I would kind of get it out of that.
Yeah, I want to bring up one thing on that. I'm going to divert slightly because I've heard this about the pros and the cons of communication, especially where you're in the military. In World War II, even through Vietnam, you had to write somebody. So there'd be a letter, and then there'd be like a month, and then a letter, and then another. And how now for people who are in the fields, who are in battle or something like that, they might be getting shot at and also getting a message that says, "Hey, the refrigerator went out. What should I do?" Right? And because I've talked to people that's really happened, and they're like, the added stressors of the extra communication actually can be really difficult for people who are in the military, but who are out in the front lines or on a mission or something like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those, now they have like Wi-Fi on the ships and they get to like have their phones and,
Yeah.
but I mean, we went over 100 days
Yeah.
without a phone communication a couple times. So yeah, that was difficult.
I think it was good and bad, though. I mean, you
Yeah.
have to make the best of the situation. But
Sure.
I think a good thing was, she would tell me, but she had to face it, kind of on her own, which she essentially does even when I'm around. But then when I would get the email, I would feel bad because that was something that happened a while back and there was nothing I could do. So, and then
Yeah.
it would flare it back up because I would respond to it, and it would make her think of it again. So it was kind of good and bad.
I think even
Sure.
through that though, we kind of like, I don't think you really saw the fallout until years later at
No,
Paris
no,
Island,
right.
when we were in South Carolina.
yeah, I agree.
So it grows, right? You have this the two of you, the cute young two of you who like each other in high school, you're friends. Maybe there's that secret crush, but OCD's there. Mackenzie probably able to hide a lot of it or brush it away in some ways, but as you're describing, as you get older, it's more difficult, and you get married, there's more responsibility. You get pregnant, there's hormonal changes, responsibility changes again. There's these kind of buildups upon buildups upon buildups. Montana, you come back from that trip. What's it like to reunite? And you have a baby coming, and OCD is flaring.
I would say the first week was kind of normal. It was
Okay.
like a lot of emotions going on because I was home.
Yeah.
And then I was struggling too because coming from that to being back home and trying to get back to a normal life,
Yeah.
little things would bother me. Like she had bought new furniture, and that was extremely frustrating to
It's
me.
not funny.
I don't
Sorry.
know, because it's a whole nother story, but things like that have bothered me. But
Sure.
I would say after we had our second, that's when it really hit fast.
Yeah,
It
'cause
wasn't
after Charlie, after our second was born,
Yeah.
there was no hiding it. Everything just,
Yeah.
So
With our
what
first
happened?
I came home. She had the baby a couple weeks later, right? Maybe a month later. Then I had orders again, so it was a lot in that first 6 to 8 months. So we were able to kind of manage it, and it didn't really like flare up at that time. So,
Mhm. And then comes Charlie.
and
Then comes
that
Charlie.
one, we had time for that one.
yeah.
What happens
we
there?
move every 3 years. So, of course,
True.
OCD loves that too.
Oh,
Right?
yeah. That's always a fun time. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So we had a move, then Charlie was born, and Charlie was diagnosed with autism. And I think that was kind of my brain's like just combusting
Right.
moment. It was during COVID. I blamed myself because during my pregnancies, I was, my OCD was so loud. I wasn't in exposure response therapy yet. I was horrible about taking my medication. And yeah, it just kind of went downhill from there.
We sadly still hear this in our culture. It's always the mom's fault, right? Just you. And then the self-blame and the guilt and everything that people have. Anytime their child has something that's diagnosed, be it mental or physical, you always look and think, what did I do and how could I have done better or something like that. I think it's a pretty natural response for sure.
Yeah. And I had to really sit with, and that was when I started ERP therapy the first time, I don't think that I wasn't fully committed to it. You know what I mean? Like I was listening and I was trying, but I hadn't pushed myself over that threshold yet. And then we moved from from Paris Island to San Diego.
Mhm.
And we got a lease from the military, and it had said that there was asbestos like in our house. And
Potential.
potential.
OCD
it was
loves
like-
asbestos.
Yeah, it was like an addendum in the lease agreement, and I think it's a requirement, but she really attached to that.
On the drive from South Carolina to California, I lost my mind, I think.
Yeah.
I convinced them that the lease said we had to use like command strips to hang everything because I didn't want to hammer it into anything. It did not say that, which is, I think, a big part of this too is OCD was very manipulative, and it would, I would come up with these lies, which they were lies, right? But it was because I was trying so hard to, make everyone safe. And so I would come up with these lies, and I would get stuck in these lies, and then he would realize that I was lying.
And boy, OCD's push for safety doesn't really take into account the feelings of anybody else, does it?
No. I think we moved.
Oh yeah, no.
We moved four times. 3. No, because we moved to the first house, then we moved to the hotel, then we moved to the third house, then we moved back on base. We moved 4 times within, I would say, 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, you're getting into the nitty-gritty now.
That's okay. That's what we want. So give us an example of that, because this is more common than we talk about, and that's why I really appreciate the two of you being here. What's that experience like? So you get to this house, maybe there's asbestos, and OCD is just raging, and what does it do? Walk me through that, to this hotel, to this other place, and to the, how does that happen?
So my mom always comes with us when we move and helps us get everything set up. She's always been awesome about that. And she was there, and we had friends that were stationed there, so everyone had come to see us, and everybody was kind of setting things up. And in my head, I was like, I'm not staying here. I can't do it. And I wasn't in exposure response therapy anymore, so I think I had planned that almost. Like I was like, I was trying to go through the motions, but I was like, I can't do it. It's not safe. I can't be here. And so everyone was trying to set things up and get comfortable. And I was already kind of digging into like, oh, like this is so wrong. Like we can't live here. This isn't safe. And, Googling things and talking to housing, creating issues with housing, trying to come up with other reasons why we should move. And then I found mouse poop behind the dishwasher. And then, so, these are the hard things to talk about. And the reason that, I get so angry, and I try not to get angry, but when people say like, I'm so OCD, or we use OCD in a flippant way, because there were certain rooms I wasn't letting our kids step foot in because the mouse poop was in the kitchen. I declared that was contaminated, and so like the eating out all the time started, and fighting, because not only did I not want to use the kitchen, but I didn't want Montana in there, and I didn't want the girls in there, and I basically had them like, oh my God, this makes me sick. But they were basically like living upstairs because it felt like it was detrimental to their health to have them down there. And I think that, so then we ended up breaking that lease, and we went into a hotel because there wasn't anything available, which was chaotic in and of itself, being in a hotel and moving all our stuff into storage after we had just moved everything.
Granted, it was a very nice hotel. It was it had its
Check.
own private beach.
Well, it was on Coronado, the military base in San Diego, but
still, there's a lot of money going into this too, with moving and expenses and storage, and you know, but just
Financially, it was definitely in there. I mean, think about it. Every time when you rent, you have to pay first and last month's rent.
and when you break a lease,
you owe. You're technically supposed. Some of them change, but luckily, a lot of them helped us out, and they kind of took fault for some of the reasoning. So we were okay there, but
there really wasn't any fault to take for them. But yeah, I think, and yeah, financial. I mean, to this day, we still haven't recovered fully from what OCD has done. I mean, because then we moved from the hotel to a house in town.
Yeah.
And then that went to shit because there were these little bugs. Clearly now I know that this is life and these things happen, and my OCD was going to find anything anywhere, right? But there were like these little bugs, and I latched onto that, and then I would be mad at the landlord, and then basically the whole process started all over again. And I actually started ERP therapy when we were in that house because I had lost a ton of weight. I wasn't driving.
Nope.
And that was like 15 to 20 minutes from base. And then you add California highways in. So Montana was having to drive to work, come back, get me, drive us there. Like if the girls had appointments or anything, he was doing all of these things. That was a mess too. I forgot about that. So we started ERP therapy there, and I had the most amazing therapist, super like tough love, which is how I thrive. And Montana, what did you think about when we started therapy?
I thought it was great. I enjoyed it because she would make you do the things that you didn't want to do, which eased our life, like the way we lived. I think at the time the main thing was the stove. So she
kitchen,
she immediately made you pull the stove out and clean it, and I was like, yay, now I can cook.
Yeah, so that kitchen became contaminated too but why not, right? It was the same, and we were eating out again nonstop. The people at Chick-fil-A knew us literally by first and last name.
We lived there.
Yeah, and I think what happened with therapy and being able to do it on your phone and just having all that access is that Montana became like my accountability partner because he learned, like we would all sit down and my therapist would go, how's everything going? And I'd say, great. And Montana would be like, really? Because there's no money in our bank account. We can't eat in the house. Like the girls are sequestered. No, everything is not great.
Yeah. So it isn't just the two of you. Your kids are involved in this as well, right? And again, I appreciate as much as you're willing to discuss, because I know it's probably still hard to this day to think about, but what was OCD doing, or how was it interfering in your ability to parent your children?
I would say I was able to shield them pretty well and manage it because I started to get the gist of what was going on and like when it was going to happen and what would cause an issue. So I was able to shield most of it. But whenever, it didn't really directly affect them, and they were so young. So they probably wouldn't remember any of it, to be honest with you, but it could have been bad for sure. There were certain things that would affected them, but we were able to kind of course correct it,
I think you're also trying to be nice.
No, I'm not justifying it.
They were young enough to not know. Yes, that is true. But I remember vividly him, because I've told you this before, Dr. McGrath, he's obnoxiously upbeat, always in a good mood, and just I watched him crumble, and he was like, and we had to learn to separate the OCD from me. But at the time it was, you're not letting me be a parent. You're not letting me, Ellie would want to go play in the dirt. And I was like, no, we can't do that. Or, I'm constantly just this shadow, this cloud over my OCD was, right, all over the situation. And he could not.
That was South Carolina. That was before I knew it was like, that was before the big bang, so to speak. So I remember that conversation, though. I remember being frustrated because I wanted her to put mulch down with me, and you wouldn't let her, and I didn't understand that at the time. But it didn't necessarily affect her, though. She was upset because you made her go inside, but she didn't know any difference of putting it down or not. It wasn't detrimental to her, but those types of things did get in the way, and they could have definitely been detrimental.
What was the Big Bang? That I like that phrase. What
the
was
Big Bang? I would say to me was when we left Paris Island, and we're on the way there. And I enjoy like moving and starting like when we go to new bases and things. Like, I enjoy that process. One, because I finally have time with my family for an extended period, so I tend to enjoy those times. But I remember her reading that lease and calling me. I was in the U-Haul in front of her, and I just knew, like, it just hit, and I was like frustrated because when we move in, I want to get it set up. I want to hang stuff on the wall. I want to make it a home as fast as possible. And every avenue I turned to, that was not happening. I mean, for almost a month, everything stayed in the box, So the Big Bang was reading that lease, I would say. That's when it really, like, I knew it was coming. And then once we got there, it happened.
I'm shocked because people with OCD don't read into anything, Mackenzie. So I don't know how you would have done it.
I've never showed you my resume, but I'm an expert pest control. I'm an expert in
are you? Okay.
Yeah, infectious disease, mold,
mouse poop, hantavirus, all of it. Yeah, you have an honorary degree in all of these areas.
Yeah,
you have great attention to detail.
Just what you want, right? All right. So then therapy comes into play, right? Yeah. And you two kind of realize that this is beyond us, and that's got to be difficult, right? I mean, everybody wants to try to figure everything out together, but how do you decide that nope, we need some extra intervention going on here, that we're not handling this well?
You want me to you want me to say it?
What?
I can tell you from what happened for me. Yeah. I actually called her parents.
Okay.
And I let them know, like, hey, this is what?
I'm teasing.
I called her parents and I was like, this is starting to affect, the way I'm operating with the children, and that was kind of the Kenzie and I had like a thing, whatever we have on our lives, we just don't want it to affect the family. So sure. I called her parents and they intervened, and they kind of told her, like, hey, you need to do therapy. And then she got mad about that, which I understand during that time, but she eventually it stuck. We had that conversation and she went for it.
Everything imploded. So finances, we've moved into this house out in town in California, and the gas.
It's very cheap in California, by the way.
Gosh.
So yeah.
Pennies. Yeah.
I don't know what you're complaining about. It's
and gas, because I wasn't driving.
Sure.
And so I had started therapy and we were talking and we just had nothing left financially. I mean, because and the bills, the utility bills in California, so electricity, gas, everything was so expensive. And we talked to my therapist and a house had opened on base again. And I was, I think it's this crappy feeling of where, you don't want to put yourself in a box, but I felt like I had to say, this isn't my OCD, this is like, we have to do this. We have to move because we cannot financially sustain what is going on here. Now, was my OCD not liking that house we were in? Yes, but we were drowning. So we ended up, moving again, which it's so embarrassing to say out loud, but we ended up moving again, and we sat down, and I remember this, I don't know if you do, but my therapist was like, okay, we are not moving. I don't care what the hell happens. Yeah. Mackenzie, do you get it? Montana, do you get it? This is it. Like, this is it. And we worked on, not, checking everything as soon as we walk into the house. And, I think for me, it was scary because the poor human had done this now 3 times. And it was like, okay, is this going to stick? Is this, is this going to be okay? And he always said, like, divorce isn't an option, but I swear to God, our marriage was hanging on by a thread. And you don't even go into, I don't know if this is TMI, but like OCD affects everything. Sex life, finances,
of course.
Everything.
Yeah. It's hard to sometimes look at each other, I'm assuming, when you've just argued or fought about everything and then be like, oh, it's intimacy time now. No, I mean, that you don't just flip a switch or something like that, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my contamination OCD with that kind of stuff too, like had kind of latched on in a lot of different ways also. I think it's all encompassing. I think about all the groceries I threw away.
Yeah.
And there's more money and everything too, right?
We got rid of a car.
It was a significant amount of money. I couldn't put a number on it, but it was well over 15 grand within a 6-month period on basic living expenses. That wasn't extra. That was nothing extra. That probably doesn't even include, fuel for the cars or anything like that. That was just moving around, buying new stuff. It was quite a bit.
And at 15 grand that we did not have to do that with, by the way.
Sure. Yeah. Everyone's got 15 grand just laying around.
Yeah.
How do you come to terms in like settling in? I'll get to the full coming to terms with all of this as you can look back, but how do you start going from this chaotic experience? You're starting therapy, you're listening to the therapist. Mackenzie, there's got to be a part of you that wants to fight that, right? It'd be, that back and forth internal. Montana, you're there to help and support. And how do you finally get to a point where you're like, okay, we can figure this out, we can make this work, we can do this, but we've got to live within these walls, right? To be able to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that for me, I realized that the only thing scarier than my OCD was like the world I had created and that we were living in. It was very much so projecting onto our kids. I mean, I went through a time where I didn't even feel like I could give them a bath because my OCD had convinced me that like I'd get water in their eyes or their mouth and they would get a brain-eating amoeba. So Montana had to do it. And it was it makes you feel horrible as a mom. I absolutely loved being a mom, but I wouldn't get out of my own way. And so I think, and then watching him just, completely come undone. I mean, he looked at me one time and he was like, I am in a depression. Like that's okay. He had gained weight. He wasn't doing anything physically. Like you could just see the life draining from him. And that gutted me. And then, we had like savings and had been doing so well. And to see all of that go too, it was so hard. It was so hard. And I don't think, I don't know that we even fully understand how much we've lost as far as that goes, between like throwing groceries away, all the things. And I just knew that I couldn't live like that anymore. And more so than me, that my family couldn't live like that anymore. So I think one of the key parts, and I will die on that hill, is Montana coming to therapy and being that accountability partner. Tell Dr. McGrath how excited you were to drop a toothbrush in the...
It was great.
Yeah. He had so much fun with exposure response therapy. Yeah. Like one of my first exposures.
It was payback.
Yeah.
Was he had to like drop something on the ground in the store and buy it anyway, and I wasn't able to know like what it was, but like I had to use everything, and he to this day I don't think has told me what it was. But then he used to get virtual high fives through therapy all the time too, because when my driving OCD was loud, I was like, Montana, were you paying attention? Like, I don't know if that was a person or not. And he was like, oh no, like I wasn't. He's like, but I'm going to get in the shower when we get home. So if the cops come to the door, like tell them I said hi, like, or whatever.
Awesome. Yeah.
But it's hard. I mean, what do you think?
Like, for me,
once we dug in,
for me, it was just gaining an understanding. That's all
Sure.
I lacked.
Sure. Yeah.
Because being in the military, people have issues and things that happen, and you just kind of give them time to figure it out and help them along the way. But that wasn't working with Mackenzie, so I had gotten to a point where I didn't know what to do. So it was really nice for her therapist to kind of give me guidance, and I wasn't on every call, but
No.
she had gotten to a point where she would do the session with Mackenzie, and then at the end she would make Mackenzie leave and then talk to me and ask me, hey, how's she really doing? Did she do this? And things like that, which I really appreciated because it kind of allowed me to ask questions, and get other avenues that I could do. And the big one was the communication. It was the way I was addressing the OCD. So when she would do something, I'd be like, oh, here you go again. And that would anger her.
Literally
and
that.
then we would argue. And so instead of doing that, it was this simple. Hey, is this really bothering you, or is this OCD? Do you need a minute? Just those exact words, just like that, completely changed the direction of how we handled those points of friction. So it was
Amazing.
It was good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she asked me if it was okay to like have that time.
Of course.
Yeah, with Montana. And
yeah, she was great.
The communication of like, because it's valid, right? I get that feeling of like, oh my God, here we go again. Like, are you kidding me right now? And I get that. But I think Montana, like he was saying to me before we started this today, that it's important to what were you saying about like the OCD versus the person?
Oh, it's separating it. So
Sure.
knowing OCD versus her personality or her actions, being able to separate. Now, that's easier said than done, though. I don't want to downplay that at all, because for us specifically, for a while you were doing those things, and I didn't think it was anything. You know what I mean? I thought that was kind of you until it actually occurred. When it really got bad, that's when I had to learn to separate the two.
Till Mackenzie started on steroids, you're saying.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. My OCD was the Energizer Bunny. It just was not running out of anything.
Yeah, it was a movie.
But I
So
go ahead, Dr. McGrath. I'm sorry.
No, please. You were going to say something.
I think him learning, educating himself on what OCD was, and I think it's the idea of like, I think I said this the other night too, but it's the idea of getting the support we need versus the support we want. And
there you go. Mm-hmm.
I think also accountability, like just because I have OCD doesn't mean that I get to treat everyone like my punching bag. And that was kind of what was happening too.
Right. Yeah.
I've always said OCD does not have your best interest at heart.
No.
Right.
Or your family's best interest at heart either, right? It has its own best interest at heart, and be damned anybody who gets in the way.
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
So ERP gives you your life back. It gives your family back to you the way that I'm assuming you were hoping it would be, right? What's it like now in the years? I don't know. I mean, how long has it been since like that experience? And what do you still kind of work on evolving today in your relationship with each other, with your children? How does OCD still maybe try to sneak in here and there? How do you catch it? I think that's an important message too for people, because it's not like you just go to therapy, and then I was like, oh, now it's all unicorn farts and rainbows. Everything's great. We don't have to worry about it, right? There's more to it than that, isn't there? Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's been almost 4 years since then. Three. And yeah, I mean, you know, my OCD still shows up. I think Montana having the knowledge that he has, like when we first moved to Rhode Island, because we're here now, we took Ellie, our oldest. She wanted to ride a horse, so we took her to ride a horse, and this giant rat ran across the barn, like right next to her, and I felt like, oh my God, here we go, you know, and my anxiety rose, and Montana looked at me and he was like, hey, I love you, and if you need to go to the car, that's fine, but she's getting on the damn horse. Like, we're not leaving, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to pick them up and leave and scratch it. I don't care, like, if we're going to cry, at least we're safe, you know, that's what I wanted to do. And so having him be that, you know, holding me accountable when sometimes I slip and I can't, I think it was really important. But, you know, OCD is always going to try to creep. I'm laughing about today. Because I still, like, there's things subconsciously where I still am trying to, OCD's worked its way into so many different aspects of my life that I feel like sometimes I still am finding these little pieces of things. And I had to call maintenance, and it was on my list of things to do, but I kept putting it off. And finally yesterday I told him, it's like, I'm pretty sure this is compulsive. Like, I don't think I want people in the house, like, that I don't know. And so he's like, okay, well, you have till Monday. Like, and then I'm calling. Well, today I flooded the entire hallway and bathroom because the washing machine broke. And I swear it was like the OCD gods, like, hey, this is life. Like, guess what? Maintenance is coming today.
Now they're coming. Yeah.
They came, and I didn't die. I might have died of
some
embarrassment.
Fans going on in the hallway and everything. It
was a mess. But I didn't die, and I handled it, and it was fine, you know. But I think learning to respond to it, like, my OCD really latched on to rodents, and we're in New England, and there's lots of mice. There's just lots. We were coming out of a funeral, and a mouse ran right under our feet. Like, I kid you not, just... And Montana looked at me, and he looked at the ground, and he was like, that is unfortunate. That is so unfortunate.
Yep.
You good? And I was like, I'm good. I'm not.
Or it's the reincarnation of the person you were just visiting at the funeral, just saying hi, potentially.
Yeah. But I don't know. How do you feel what we're doing with it now?
I think now it's easier to manage now because we both understand it. So it's easy to separate it when it's a problem, and then, you know, when it needs to be addressed. We've gotten to where you just, if you're struggling with it, you just take time to yourself, you know, which is a huge thing because you used to not do that. But we just separate about it, and then when we come back together, you know, we move forward. I would say it doesn't affect our household anymore.
No.
It will. I'm sure it extremely affects you at times, but between myself and the kids, it doesn't directly affect us, as I would say, at all, really. I mean, there are things like when I take the trash out, I'll come inside and you have to immediately tell me to put hand sanitizer.
Okay, but I
like I wasn't going to wash my hands to begin with.
I catch myself.
Things like that occur, but you'll say, I'm sorry, because...
Yeah. Ask Dr. McGrath. There's not a cure that's going to pop up sometimes.
No, I'm just saying that's probably the only really, like, frustrating thing right now.
And to be fair, he'll go, I really do say, oh my God, I'm sorry. And then I walk away. Or he'll say, I'm 32 years old. And then I walk away. So I think, like, but we also have a very, like, sarcastic, like, banter that we do, and that works for us. But I think I've just become self-aware. And so if he says, hey, like, your wheels are spinning, what's going on? Then instead of sharing it, I'm like, you know what? My OCD is loud, but I can't share it right now because it would be compulsive. So ask me in a day or two, or, you know, whatever whatever the thing is, or being honest about something that's bothering me so that, again, he acts as that accountability partner for me. But I've not only surviving, but thriving. And, OCD doesn't have that hold on me anymore. I said it's kind of like this bittersweet thing of, it took me until 32 to actually know who I am. Oh, you're 33.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was appreciating that.
It took me till 32 to realize who I am as a person, and that hurt. But I'm also so grateful that, I know that so many other people, it takes them a lot longer. And so I feel like I've just kind of came into my own, and I finally being able to be me versus who OCD wanted me to be.
I like it. So what advice do you have for the people watching who are couples who, maybe are in the midst of this like you have been in the past? What do you want them to do? What do you want to tell them?
I think first that you're not alone, and like OCD is hard, not only for the ones that are diagnosed with it, but for our loved ones as well. And, I will stand by this. I wish an OCD would do couples counseling or like family counseling for OCD.
Well, we do that. We'll pull in couples. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
and
no problem.
Because it's, if we went to a talk therapist and you were like, hey, my wife's spraying Lysol on her feet and she, is chasing me around the house with hand sanitizer, like they might not know what to do there, but it's one of those things. I mean, it affected us, sexually, financially, our family dynamic, everything, our mental health, Montana's mental health. But I think educating yourself on it, understanding what OCD is and how debilitating it can be, and then finding purpose in the pain too. Like Montana has sat in on a few support groups, and being able to help other people feel less alone and help other families so that maybe they don't go through, what we did, I think has been really helpful too. What do you think?
I would say, I would say don't try to solve the problem. So whatever's going on, don't try to, be the hero, so to speak, and give the solution to the problem, because that essentially almost reassures you, and that makes it worse. It will build off that. It took me a while to understand that, because I would always say, well, it's not dirty, or it's not this, it's not that, hey, don't worry about it, I'll clean it. And I would kind of do that, but that doesn't solve the issue. So I think that understanding it for sure, and then differentiating the person and the OCD and not taking it personal, because I did that for a while, and that made it worse. I would say, listen, understand, like, hey, this is probably an OCD thing. And I'm not good with words, so I'm trying to explain how I viewed it. But I would say also, for me, it didn't make sense when you would say, oh, we can't go in there because there's mouse poop or something. Because for me, I would say, well, just clean it up, and then there's disinfectant, just clean it up, and everything's fine. When you try to make it sound that simple, it's not. So then I would be ahead of the game on that, and then you're behind. So then we weren't on the same page, which made it again worse. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I hope that helps.
Well, I think what you're trying to say too is like it's counterintuitive. Like the way you think you're helping is actually really hurting.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because for people that do not have OCD or diagnosed OCD, to me that doesn't make sense that it would be that severe to you. But when I started understanding, like, okay, that sounds simple and there's an easy solution, but for you that's not so easy. So once I got down to that level of understanding, I was able to help and progress myself. It eased the burden for me as well.
Awesome. Well, I really want to thank the two of you for being with us today. This was such a great conversation and eye-opening, I think, for a lot of people. So thank you so very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for
I
having
enjoyed it.
us.
Awesome. And thank all of you for listening. And if you like what we were talking about today, you can subscribe on the NOCD YouTube channel to the Get to Know OCD podcast. And if you're looking for help for OCD or related conditions, check us out at NOCD.com. That's NOCD.com. Our care team is waiting to take your call and to help get you set up with a therapist who's been expertly trained in obsessive-compulsive disorder and some of our other conditions that we treat too, like body-focused repetitive behaviors, or hoarding, or even trauma issues. And we are ready and willing to help. So go to NOCD.com. We'll talk to you soon. And make it a good one.